Just a heads up, this is a follow-up video to the one that I made yesterday about Can Gods Die? So for full context, feel free to watch that one first and then come back to this. And to address the title of the video, I won't even be saying that statement is necessarily a theory, because it isn't. During the Archon War, sacrificed herself for Makoto to be seated as the Electro Archon. This is just part of Genshin's lore and isn't a speculation. According to the treasure tales of the Tokenshin Kageuchi, though the Shadow Shogun was divinely skilled in martial arts and unsurpassed with the blade, she believed herself little more than a warrior with little understanding of mortal hearts. Thus, she chose to give up her bodily form, helping her sister to ascend to the heavenly citadel and obtain dominion over Inazuma. Shortly after, the true shogun Makoto set up her shogunate and began to rule over the land. Remembering their bond, she recalled Ei's divine will and reforged her body, thus returning her sister to her side once more as her Kagemusha. Now, the validity of this book is unknown, but given that Genshin lore doesn't usually disprove itself, we can say that at the very least, this is the case. After all, the process of the Kagemusha is still unknown to us. So this part of the lore suggests that the A we currently know at the moment is a resurrected form of the original Beelzebul, which only opens a lot of questions. I didn't know where to put this in the original video because A's case was such a strange outlier that it was almost impossible to really rationalize or theorize without going into speculation territory. So, let's do just that. First is that A sacrificed her bodily form. We need to understand the wording of this for the sake of the rest of the theory. Is she or is she not dead? Well, I would say that A is dead for the purpose of Genshin's context. Ghosts and even lingering presences exist in the world of Genshin, but are still considered as dead creatures. As far as we can tell, anything that lost its corporeal form is considered diseased, regardless of how intact their soul is. Genshin's world defines creatures that still have lingering souls but no true vessel as diseased, such as Andreas. Andreas' situation is very similar to A's, in which they sacrifice their mortal bodies for the sake of declaring someone else a worthier Archon for the respective nation. Andreas for Barbados and A for Makoto. If Andreas is considered as dead, quote from the Tale of Boreas, even without its physical body and beyond death, A's situation should also fall into the same line. So yes, in all technicality, A did die. But then we go on to her resurrection. Makoto recalled her divine will and forged her body, thus returning her sister to her side once more. This would explain why in A's memory, we were able to see both of them side by side. There was a common misconception that A was just a consciousness that existed within Makoto's body, much like how the Shogun and A operate. But this doesn't seem to be the case. Makoto created a vessel for her. But the question is, how did she recall A's divine will? To recall something can mean retrieve it, which means that A's divine will was still lingering in Tevat and that Celestia, or whatever veil that separates the dead from the living, never took it away. Much like Andreas. It's even possible that A herself willed her soul to remain in Tevat to stay with her sister, perhaps because of this bond that they share, as Makoto uses that to retrieve A's divine will. But that only begs a bigger question. Why can A not do the same when Makoto died? Well, I believe that it's because Makoto moved on. It's possible that A held on to this realm for her own unknown reasons, but Makoto never stayed after her death. We see an allegory for her essence whisked away during A's story quest part 2, effectively sharing her final goodbye with her sister. This is why A couldn't let go of her sister, because at some point, A died and was the one that was supposed to leave, but A stood eternally by Makoto. However, Makoto on the other hand, believed in the transience of existence and decided to move on, which paints an even sadder story. Because I can only imagine the pain that A went through after Makoto died. Consider this. Makoto had to watch her own sister die, but she was able to retrieve her sister back with the art of the Kagemusha. So, don't you think A would have tried to do the same thing? And when she failed because she couldn't recall Makoto's divine will because there's nothing there, A would only grow more desperate. Because perhaps this is why she decided to slowly lock herself in the plane of euthymia, and why she wanted to forge a vessel that could house the Gnosis, something that was Makoto's. This guilt of being unable to not only move on from the loss of her sister, but also be unable to bring her back the way Makoto did for her, could be what piled onto this paranoia that time leaves behind nothing. This adds another layer of guilt to A's story, that she's not supposed to be here. She's not even supposed to exist anymore, and neither is she supposed to be the ruler of Inazuma had it not been for Makoto's intervention. But hey, that's just a happy speculation and just a simple follow-up to the whole situation. Anyway, my name is Aster and thank you for chilling with me. According to the treasured tales of the Chokan Shinkaguechi, how I can say that normally? According to the treasured tales of the Chokan Shinkaguechi. According to the treasured tales of the Chokan Puta. How does this... it's like 12 a.m. here, and according to the treasure tales of the Chokan Shinkaguechi... Fuck! You got this! It's like 12 a.m. According to the treasure tales of the Chokan Shinkaguechi... Shinkaguchi...